She was like, why we down here?
Oh, I don't.
I know.
I went to where I sat the last time, but apparently that was.
I think they might have switched him. But I know they switched him because he's over here. Are they going to speak? Are y'all going to speak? Hi, how are you? Good. So I'm assuming that this sheet is the recommendations that we're making.
Well, if we want to approve it, if we want to get the staff, not allowing staff. The staff recommendations is only warehouse and inside, no outside. Or we can take it. So that's why I was looking at all these options.
Okay. Okay.
So I like that they wrote them out
Yeah.
based on each one. So
Okay.
So if we do nothing, then if it's already approved, if we do nothing, then what, right? Yeah. Just a question. Just a question.
Look, that was the same way. I'm like, don't be putting us up in
Right. Yeah. It feels like you trying to do the okey doke on us.
Yes. Hey, baby.
Hey, another pen.
No,
Cooking dinner.
look,
You need another.
you was here.
Cooking dinner.
You forgot.
You see what I got on? I was.
You said you was right at the turkey. Remember, right before the surprise grandbaby born Saturday. A surprise.
Congratulations.
Thank you. So some people was just bringing some stuff. My girlfriend was nice. Right. And I gotta get this baby stuff. So they just been popping up. And I'm like, oh my God. Thanks, y'all. Thanks, y'all.
Congrats.
Thank you.
Congrats. I done it.
Thank you. Boy or girl? A boy. We were almost 10 pounds. And she hid it for 9 months. And they live in the house together. So, LC, what's your take on this thing?
I'm good with it.
I'm good. Me
I
too.
mean, it's the man. Why can't I protect it that makes any sense? It's his bill.
Oh, it's still good.
It's his bill. He owns it. He, you know, he owns Schuster and his knives.
Oh, okay.
He owns that. So, yeah.
Wow.
Wow.
Wow. What's going on?
That's why people don't do business. What else?
I don't understand. I mean, I'm for it.
Me too. I'm not gonna change my broken system. No.
Who? What?
Yeah, it's just confusion. You got booted, huh?
Oh, yeah, booted all the way to the end.
We just switched seats.
Yeah, okay. They didn't want you to feel all lonely down there
Yeah.
by yourself.
Welcome, everybody. We're going to call the June 20th ZBA meeting to order. Roll call, please.
Thank you, Chair. All right, Commissioner Anderson,
Here?
Chair Bekova,
Here.
Commissioner Bueno.
Here.
Commissioner Kirkendall.
Here.
Commissioner McCullen.
Here.
Commissioner May.
Here.
Commissioner Burt.
Here.
And then Commissioner Ford is excused. Chair, we have a quorum.
Thank you, sir. Are there any communications we need to know about?
Kirk, Mr. Anderson, how you doing?
There are no communications.
Thank you. And next on the agenda is adoption of the minutes. Does anybody have any comments or questions about the minutes?
Move to approve the minutes with any necessary corrections.
Second.
Okay, we got a approval by Bueno and a second by Anderson. Roll, please.
All right, Commissioner Anderson.
Yes.
Chair Bekova.
Yes.
Chair Bueno.
Yes.
Chair Kirkendall.
Yes.
Chair McCullen.
Yes.
Chair May.
Yes.
Chair Burt.
Yes.
All right. Minutes have been approved.
Next item, is there any old business that we know of?
There is not any old business.
All right. On to new business.
Okay.
First item, item 6.1, is a use variance request. The applicant is Haysap LLC, care of Alan Bishop. The property located at 48 West Huron Street.
Thank you, Chair. Welcome, everyone. Our first item tonight is item ZBA 22-02. This is a use variance for 48 West Huron. The request is for a mini warehouse use in the C2 downtown zoning district. Per the Pontiac zoning ordinance, a mini warehouse use is not permitted by right or by special exemption, and therefore a use variance is required for the proposed use. And then as defined, the mini warehouse definition on the screen is defined as a building or group of buildings containing separate storage spaces used for the storage of business or personal property. For reference, the property is located in the C2 downtown or inside the Woodward Loop, located just north of Huron. And then you can see the area or the series of parcels that are included in this use variance. This includes the Oakland Press building and the surrounding vacant parcels. And then here's just a closer reference of where those parcels are. Those three parcels, that will be parcels 008, 009, and 010, make up the building itself, and the remaining parcels are the surrounding adjacent vacant parcels. The applicant has proposed to utilize the Oakland Press building and the surrounding properties as a mini storage use. So you can see the smaller white boxes to the north and the west of the the blue box indicate where the storage units would be proposed. Contextually, this isn't a formal site plan, but contextually, that's where they are proposing to locate these structures. And then the Oakland Press building itself would maintain a multi-tenant use. The applicants have proposed a series of screening options, including some masonry walls and some typical or 6-foot chain link fencing and screening. For use variances, the Zoning Board of Appeals does have the authority to grant a use variance or to authorize a land use that is otherwise not permitted by the zoning ordinance by an approval of 2/3 of the sitting commissioners, or that would be 5 members of the 7. The applicant has applied for a zoning compliance review in 2021 in July to request this land use. It was at that time determined that many storage uses are not permitted within the C2 district and that a further use variance would be required. The zoning ordinance does outline the requirements to determine an unnecessary hardship, which is the requirement for the Zoning Board of Appeals to permit a use variance. And we'll briefly go over through those. The property in question cannot be reasonably used or cannot yield a reasonable return on a prudent investment if the property would be used only for a purpose allowed within the zoning district. The subject property is zoned C2 downtown commercial, where an assortment of uses are permitted, including commercial, business, and personal services, offices, and residential uses. Furthermore, the vacant land surrounding the 48 West Huron property is also zoned C2 downtown and supports the aforementioned uses. The denial of this petition does not restrict reasonable return on prudent investment of the property. Furthermore, the plight is due to the unique circumstances peculiar to the property and not the general neighborhood conditions. The applicant's plight is a result of a large single-user structure built for the former Oakland Press offices, warehousing, and distribution on this property. This plight does not apply to the vacant land associated with this use variance request. This condition is not evident in nearby buildings in the downtown Pontiac area. The use to be authorized by the variance will not alter the essential character of the area and locality. The proposed use would alter the character of the downtown C2 district, permitting the construction of many storage units in the central business district. The use inside the 48 West Huron structure would not alter the character of the area. The problem is not self-created. The solution is to identify the best and highest use for the site. The problem is self-created. The request to construct new storage units on vacant land exists, while the proposed use is not permitted. The spirit of this ordinance will be observed, public safety and welfare secured, and substantial justice be done. Granting this use variance would not be consistent with the spirit of the Pontiac zoning ordinance. And the last two here, is there further compliance with the standards set forth in section 6.40B? And this section speaks to supply of light, air to adjacent properties, unreasonable increase to congestion in public streets, or increase the danger of fire. And lastly, there is compliance with any applicable standards for discretionary decisions as contained in section 6.303, and the petition does meet the special exemption standards of section 3.3 of the Pontiac zoning ordinance. And that concludes the presentation for ZBA 22-02.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Would the applicant like to present or make any comments?
We'll give a brief presentation. Matthew Gibb. I'm at 48 West Huron, which is the property in question. I moved my firm, Charter Course Legal, there from 26 West and 30 North Saginaw, along with a portion of the Next Education, which is doing training and certifications, as well as Michigan Repurposed and Charge US, all to the Oakland Press Building following the March 21 meeting. Just by way of brief presentation, I know there is a lot of people here that are very interested in this particular project, and I'm hopeful, Mr. Chair, and those on the zoning board, that we would hold the public hearing tonight as well, following this presentation. The resolution that was passed in your minutes is to reconsider and rehear the zoning application that was heard earlier this year. And it's a tricky procedural thing. It's some would look at it and say, well, let's just consider it as a new application. Others would say, if we were asking for the reconsideration of something, we would be held to a pretty tough standard of only considering what was on the record or new or material things. In this case, it's an interesting conundrum that we support. And Donovan gave an excellent presentation. We've been working very closely, really the last year and a half, with the Pontiac staff to make sure that this is done in a thoughtful and very, very meaningful manner. One of the challenges that's before you tonight is the last board. I think the consensus amongst the city of Pontiac and their attorney is that that board didn't have authority. And so that's fine. But what does that really mean? I mean, what did they consider? What was the materials that were before them that resulted in a positive vote of that particular group of very good people in Pontiac, and we know them all very, very well. So what was before them? It's been in your packet. And so I'm just going to summarize instead of going through detail. I know Mr. Anderson and others have heard this presentation, so I'll try not to belabor the detail too much. But what is exactly before you? So either during our presentation or during your public hearing, Robert Mihalik is here, who's a longtime broker on the property. He'll very briefly reiterate the fact that this property has been vacant nearly 10 years. The Oakland Press building is a unique one if you haven't been in it. The rear of the building is very industrial. Matter of fact, it has 7 loading docks in the back that are all fitted for heavy truck traffic, and for years it was heavy truck traffic through that area. All the loading bays are still there. The very heavy freight elevator is completely operational, and that freight operator takes you up to a very hodgepodge myriad maze of industrial rooms that make up about 40,000 or so of the 75,000 square feet of that building. Approximately 40,000 square feet of that building is all concrete and oil stains and wires and freight elevators in the back of that building. On the front of the building, it's old office space. That's where the editor's offices were. And when I say it's old, I love my office. I got the editor's office. But some of the others, Heather and others, it's a work in progress. And it is a work in progress. The building has been very, very, very difficult to transition, as you all know. This is about a use. And the reason we came to the zoning board to ask about the use is Mr. Bishop acquired the property. When we were making this argument last August, it was within the year, so he was a new owner of the property, had not sat on it for a long time. I do know firsthand knowledge, we have property owners in our downtown that have sat on those properties for years and years and years, and that's not the case here. We are actively seeking a way that we can bring investment to the downtown. So the materials in your packet really outline the challenges. As Mr. Smith has said, to get a use variance, you have to have an unnecessary hardship. So, what is that unnecessary hardship? Come on, Matt and Alan, can't you figure out a way to use that old industrial building by now? Well, the Platte is temporarily closed and not serving any food, and the Alley Cat is open less and less. And I pray for them, and I long that those businesses can have success. And 29 North Saginaw, the old Coney Island's not open, and the Pike Street Grill's not open, and we can go on and on. So we can't really put a restaurant there. There's not adjacent parking really anyway, unless we want them to park in the loading docks. Could we do retail there? There's 41 retail empty storefronts in the downtown right now. That's a lot. And I know some of them are waiting on marijuana, but that wait will continue. Now there's 8 lawsuits that have been filed against the city for the marijuana licensing process. Those will take a time to work them way through, right? So here we are at our building. So what do you do there? Well, put houses there, put residential. We went through that ad nauseum before. We met again today with Robertson Brothers. Our good mayor, who our group at Oakland Press wants the greatest success for this new mayor. It's why we supported him so much in the process. He met with Robertson Brothers a little bit ago without us, but that's okay because they're family to us. They're really practically family to Alan. So we met with them at length today, and today is there any possible way we could do residential at this site? And there's just not. The average price that we would have to sell a 1 or 2 bedroom unit on the site would be an average of about $389,000 to $449,000. The market right now in Pontiac for a single family condominium of that kind, the market rate is about $139,000. So we're a full $250,000 over what the market would bear. So we can't do residential. We can't do a restaurant. We can't do retail. We can't really do office because there's more than 400,000 square foot of office space that's empty, not including our building right now. You have close to 400,000 or 300,000 square feet in the Ottawa Towers alone that's sitting there empty. So we can't do office. Across the street, the Riker building is struggling to fill the 9th floor after the Mad Dog firm left. Half of the 6th floor continues to be empty. In 30 North, he's lost several tenants out of 30 North. It's just a hard market, and we've seen interest rates now are rising and going up. So our hardship, we believe, is pretty clear that there has to be some give here. Our suggestion to the prior ZBA was a use variance. Instead of rezoning the property in its entirety, coming in and saying, let's rezone it to light manufacturing, because that's what it was, or let's rezone it to a different full use where you could have 30 different uses there, we said, here's what we've come up with. A use variance that would allow many warehousing on the property, but not the whole property. We've been very consistent from the beginning, not the whole property. The company in August from California, Devon, wanted to build out the interior of the building and do what Mr. Smith showed on the site. We wanted to reconsider that 4-3 positive vote, but we didn't get the 2/3. We didn't get the 5th vote that day in August, and we just couldn't get a meeting. We couldn't get a meeting in the fall. And then we did get a meeting in March, and we presented what we thought was a more thorough picture of what this looks like. And I know Mr. Anderson and others really, we've put a lot of time into it. So what are we doing there, and why are we asking for this use variance? You see in the audience, speckled through here, business owners that have already moved in. We're doing exactly what we said we would do, exactly what we promised the city we would do, is we're turning the front of the building into an incubator for Pontiac. We have small businesses that have already moved in. We're being very generous with them to help them get started, where we can help them in their business grow and legal and function. And Mr. Allen Shoes, I mean, he's got almost 40 years of business in this community. He's pledging that to them. And so we've got small businesses in the front of the building incubating themselves. My business is there. It's a small business. We're there, right? We're there. So we're doing what we said we'd do, and we're trying to turn the front end of that building into an incubator. We've got a tech company taking one of the industrial spots in the back that does crypto mining. Very cool technology. It brings tax base. It brings lots of things to the community. So we're doing exactly what we said we were going to do on the property. We've been very consistent on the use that there's not an ability to finance this building, to rebuild it. We don't want a brownfield, even though there's contamination in the old printing bays of the building. And we don't want a commercial rehabilitation tax abatement right now, because the city doesn't need that. They don't need to give away more when we can do something else. The use that's being proposed, and the reason it's a variance has been articulated, is it would be a change from your ordinance, and the use would be to allow mini warehousing. But here's what we've really been consistent about, and I agree with Mr. Smith's presentation tonight, that he said that it should be inside, and we agree that it should be inside. What we didn't know last time, that we know now, is what we did after that March approval of the zoning board, the then zoning board. We went to work, as people that want to invest in this community do. Alan flew around the country to meet with investors. We went to trade shows. I dug in here locally to find who could partner with us to build this out, to do it the right way, that we could bring in more incubators. We have 7 companies stacked up right now that are clean tech companies. 3 of them are from overseas that want to build the first ever clean tech incubator in Michigan, and they're waiting for us to figure out how we can rebuild the building in the front. And we can't do it unless we ask for all those other things. But what we can ask for is, can we put mini warehousing storage in the balance of the industrial areas in the back of that building? Can we do it? Can we use these old block, ugly rooms so people in this community can store stuff in the downtown? And then those outlots, and I know there's saying, well, we really don't want it on those outlots. We agree. What I handed out to you tonight is what our vision's been really since March 21st. Our vision has been that building. We don't want to put garages outside. We hate garages. There's already 6 of them on the site. As of yesterday, there used to be 12 semi-tractor storage units on that site. It had been there forever. But we did what we said we'd do, and we got rid of them. We got rid of that. We want to get rid of those garages that are there. We want to get rid of the loading dock bays. And we want to build a building. The use variance doesn't say what the planning commission would say. We got to go to the planning commission for that. We got to have a plan. We got to create architectural drawings. We got to have a site plan. We got to know where all the access is going to be. But for your consideration, what we pledged in August and what we pledged in March, and now we're pledging to you, is our goal is not to run rampant with some type of storage where we have giant orange garage doors behind a chain link fence. We want to do what you're being shown. Now, this isn't the right board to decide what type of building and where the driveway should go. The planning commission is, but we can't go there, and we certainly can't spend the $50,000 or $60,000 in engineering and planning fees to get to that next level unless this board says the use would be permissible on the site. Now, if we limit our storage, if it were to be approved, just to the interior of the building as the current recommendation stands, we would have to do the whole building in storage to be able to afford the rehabilitation of this building, and we just are against it. Alan and I met earlier, we're just against it. If we can utilize those 2 outlots and do, I think what the recommendation is saying is keep it all inside, and we would pledge to keep it all inside, then we can, and we can monetize that. We had a $5 million investor that has pulled out. I believe we can get him back. think, I hope, we had a $2.8 million co-investor from last fall that was ready to go. That would give us the capital that we don't need to come and ask for a brownfield and a tax credit. And we don't need that from the city. And I don't want to ask you for that. I don't want to ask the mayor for that. We can do it if we can get those investors back, and that use can go everywhere inside. And guess what we can do then? In the whole front of the building, as we said all along, is going to be a new cleaning business and an aspiring attorney. It's going to be artists. This is great artist enclave that we've put into the basement. It's going to be the farmer's market that we've complimentary given space. It's going to be a training company that I've brought in. It's going to be a new electric vehicle charging company that's getting its roots here in Pontiac. And we can do all that, but we can't do it if we can't figure out a use that would give us the capital to build all that out. And I'm telling you, and Bobby Mihalik will tell you too, he's been in this business longer than I have, there are no uses out there that are waiting to come running to the Oakland Press Building. This is a really unique opportunity, which builds into the factors that Mr. Smith said. This is an extremely unique property. It is historically used in a manner that is contrary and non-conforming to your existing ordinance. It is completely unable to be demolished and rebuilt in some way without substantial expense. There's not enough exterior property to do the compatible uses that are permitted under your ordinance. This is a very classic case of having an extremely unnecessary hardship that earners back to the property owner. And so I'll shut up now. I appreciate you listening to me. The last picture that I gave you, we've pledged all along a phase 2. People in this community are being, we don't want to look at this. And we said from day one that we own the property that is all the grass area along Woodward. And there's enough room there to do exactly what that picture shows at the bottom of that second page. Robertson Brothers wants to do that. We're working with them on other locations in the city that we would love to bring forward. They're all kind of waiting like, well, let's see if you guys can get one thing done first. Phase 2, after they do the loop rebuilding, guess what we will be back for? We don't have to ask for a variance or anything on that property. We'll be back saying, could we do 20 or 22 1 or 2 bedroom, 2-story condo type units that would be market value. You know why they're market value? Because by time we redevelop everything else, we embed all of our extra cost of building the infrastructure, all of the access points, bringing in the utilities can all be layered into our storage project with the buildings where we can't do it by itself. But we can do it if we build this great project. And so that is a teaser. I know it's not part of what's before you, but I think it's important as a community. We're all part of this community. When I left the county administration, my first office was at 33 North Saginaw, man. So we're all part of this community. So what we're asking tonight is when you reconsider what the board did on March 21st. And again, I'm going to concede, Steve Jopp is an excellent attorney. He and I are very good friends. I've had the most respect for him. We've talked about this at length. It is a little bit of a pickle of the procedure that you're reconsidering what was done in March. Consider it anew. Reconsider it. But we're hoping that you consider it in the manner that they did, where they gave very thoughtful consideration that the city can get a really dynamic project because we're pledging to limit what we're asking to the back of the existing building. I think Vern last time said no more than 30% of the existing building. We said yes. And the ability to keep everything inside on those outlots, nobody will see it. It'll look like the most beautiful office building. And if you look at that picture closely, what we're doing in the historic building is what we're going to do in those buildings, meaning it's going to have community space and conference space, because we're holding up our pledge that we gave to you, Mr. Anderson, that we would create entrepreneurial space in this downtown. And that storage center is going to be focused as a WeWork type storage place, at least on the first floor. And those are things that we can't pledge as conditions, but we are pledging that that's what we're doing, and we're proving it is we're cleaning out those trailers and we're building that incubator space, and we've got an artist enclave in the basement, and we're doing what we said we would do. So we're hopeful that you would consider the use variance to allow us to move this forward quickly. And with that, I'll be quiet. I would ask that, I did put in a letter asking for a postponement. It's been our ardent hope that we could really work collaboratively with the city to make sure that this project is the right one, that we're doing it in a way that everybody is happy with and pleased with. Mr. Jopp and I talked about that at the very end of the week. Last week, we're amenable to that. We're amenable to you voting 7-0 in our favor tonight. But we do want to really work collaboratively with you and with this city, and so we would open that. I originally said, let's just postpone it 6 months, but really we would love 30 or 45 days because we have all of tiger by the tail, so to speak. We have those 7 tech companies. We have the investor for the storage. We have it, but we need the use variance to be able to move forward. So with that, we've got a lot of people, I think, that want to speak other than me. And thank you for all the time, Mr. Vivacqua. I appreciate it. I know I went longer than I was probably supposed to.
It's okay, thanks for the presentation. I'd like to open it up for public comment at 6:27.
This is my first time at a ZBA meeting. How much time do you have to speak?
You say what you need to say.
Oh, okay. Thank you very much. I'm Maddie McKinney Hatchett, Oakland County Commissioner Emeritus, and a strong over 50 years of devotion to the Pontiac community. I'm here today to urge you to please approve this use variance. That building has sat there a long time empty. If you look at the front of it, it's not going to look a whole lot different from later on when they put their project in place. If you look at the side of the building, it's not going to alter the appearance of that area of downtown. That building is not located on the main street. It's over on the side. And a vacant building does nothing for us as citizens of Pontiac. You know, Pontiac has a reputation of being a difficult city in which to do business. I stand ready to get rid of that prejudice feeling toward the city that I love. And we can best do that by embracing some of these creative ideas if they can get the use variance that they need. The other thing that I look at, I have confidence in the ZBA that was here before. And if you go against or will not approve this, to me, that's almost like saying, you people didn't know what you were doing. We're going to do it this way. I ask you, please, please, grant this use variance. I'm sick of that building sitting up there empty that could cause all kinds of creatures to come inside, because if you don't have some activity going, anything can happen. The groundhogs, you name it. So please, look at this, see this as a chance for you to get involved with something different, something creative. Open up the doors and bring in more taxes. Change that reputation. Pontiac is not a difficult city in which to do business. If we could just open our eyes, see a new vision, see a new idea. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your comments.
Hi, my name is Laurie Bishop. I wanted to welcome the new ZBA. I was the chair of the ZBA previous. I wanted to let you know I'm excited for you. This is such a great opportunity to learn so much about the city. And we do have I love everything that you just said. Thank you so much. So this is, I've been calling it the buffoonery, Silly City for a while, which is down here at City Hall because we have a high turnover. I mean, it's been evident in the training and the reputation that we have that we unfortunately have. But I'm offended that this gentleman has to come before you guys again because he did everything. He tried very hard for probably a year to do something with the building. He had a chance to actually make $1 million and sell the building, but the ZBA denied it because it was 100% storage. We didn't want 100% storage. It was denied, so he lost over $1 million in that deal. We all didn't want storage. I think we all agreed about that. And Mr. Bueno is my guidance. Thank God he stayed with me the whole time. He's got 35 years on the board. And he was my guidance. I was looking through my notes today, and I noticed that over the last 4 years as the chair, I had requested training 10 times in writing to the previous council and the previous mayor and this council. and haven't received it. So I wish you all training. I mean, because that is what it takes. You know, if we're up there and we don't know exactly what we're looking at, which I believe has happened. I believe Mr. Anderson told. He wanted a shoe store and a knitting place for his wife, and I said, "Oh gosh, you're not. I don't think it's about what we want. I think this issue is about the zoning." But if we don't know any better, then we think that we're looking at what do we want there. So training is important, and I hope you guys can get some. I don't know really what happened with the previous ZBA. It seems like this has never been done before, from what I'm understanding. But we were never told, not as far as Reggie and myself and Sinclair, were told that we were off the board. There was no written notice. There was no we never had even as so much as an interview with them. Typically, when I got on the board, I did an interview process with the entire council. That was the procedure of how to do it. I think this council, being new, again, doesn't have the training and know what's supposed to happen. But you guys just appeared, and we disappeared, and there was no notice once, even as today, from anybody even. I'm glad to see Donovan's doing it here today. He gives the best presentation. I'm sorry I missed it. Donovan is awesome. I wish you all the best. Mr. Bishop, I wish you the best. I am rooting for you. I'm sorry he had to go through this. If you think about what happened, and Elsine and Mr. Bueno and Mr. Anderson can attest, they're saying that we were not reconfirmed. That means they didn't do their job. So for the reason that they didn't do their job, somehow we're off the board with no notice. And it's because they wanted to try to come after him. It's very, very weird that this happened. It's never happened before. But I wish you all luck. And I love Pontiac. Go, everybody. Thank you.
Thanks for your comments. I will follow that up with a little bit of a comment myself. There is an effort to provide training now. There's funding coming from the city for board members, for council members. I know my previous experience, I won't mention it every time I speak, I just want to lay a bit of a foundation. I was on the city council in Rochester for 4 years, on planning commission, various boards and commissions, and they funded our opportunity to go to MML functions, as well as Michigan Association of Planners. So there are a lot of great opportunities out there, and I hope that
we are all actually members, and the training has been there. So
right.
Not to
So
come back
so we're going to push that. It's a little bit adjacent to the actual presentation here, somewhat associated, but I just want to let you know that that's happening. And is there anyone else who'd like to speak? No, we got two.
Hello, my name is Denise Harris. I'm a registered nurse. I have a business at the Oakland Press. The Bishop family has been very generous with the rent that I pay.
You know
there.
what? We usually ask for addresses as well. I should have on the last time.
At the Oakland Press Building, 48 West Huron.
Oh.
I have a business there. And the Bishop family has been very generous with the amount of rent I pay there. When they were speaking of having storage space, I thought it was wonderful. I'm also on the board for Identify Your Dreams. We just did our big rally out in the front here on the grass. We have so much stuff that we transport back and forth, pulling it out of our garage. I thought, oh my God, that would be wonderful. We got the stage built, all this stuff, and we got stuff here, stuff there. It would have been nice just to have it because we always have our marches right here in Pontiac, and then we have other equipment and stuff. So I was really excited to hear about the possible storage space, and I hope that it gets approved.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is David Prescott. I also have studio space in the basement. I'm one of the artists at 48 West Huron. I've been at the Oakland Press for about, well, since I think December, at a very reasonable rate to have a studio in the basement. There are about 5 artists in the basement. My roots in Pontiac go back to 1979 when I had my very first engineering job at a place called Oakland Engineering, which was right around the corner on Saginaw. So when we go to enjoy our time in the studio, it's usually after work because we all have day jobs. And what do we do when we're done? Well, we go out to dinner. Well, where do we go? We go to the Liberty, we go to the Alley Cat, we get coffee and goodies from Chef Murray. We put money back into the community. And we have this reasonable rent And we have little activities, we have people come in to model and we draw. And then what do? We go out to dinner. We go to other places, we put our money back into the community. I urge you, please, please, please approve this because we want to build a community of artists. We're all going to participate in the art walk coming up. And we want to open up, we want to have classes, we want to do teach-ins, we want to do all this stuff. But we really can't until the building is in firm step. These guys are about the greatest landlords I've ever seen. In the 6 months, I've seen things go from, okay, this doesn't work, that doesn't work, to, hey guys, this doesn't work, and it's done. I think we've all had crummy landlords. Yeah, I'll fix it, well, I'll fix it. But they get things done like right now. And it's been so wonderful to see, and it's been wonderful to work with these guys. They are serious, they mean business. And what this lady said, absolutely incredible. I couldn't add a word to it. But I urge you on behalf of myself and all the other artists, and maybe they'd like to come up and talk to, I urge you, please, please help us bring some life back to Pontiac. Thank you.
My name is Heather White. I also lease space, office space at 48 West Huron from Mr. Alan Bishop. I started a cleaning company through COVID. My roots go back to, I was born at Pontiac General. I graduated from Pontiac Central in 2002. So I am lifelong citizen, and I really want to see the city prosper. Growing up, in the city and being a part of everything, and you just want to see when you're older, you want to be a part of something that helps it go forward. We've been stuck in a rut, and we've had this really terrible, hanging over our head that we're difficult to work with. You can't get there. All the businesses fail. We just want the opportunity to prove them wrong. That's the main thing, is that we want the opportunity to prove them wrong and let them know, if you are a business owner, you can come here and you can prosper in Pontiac, because that's what it's really all about, right? I mean, the change comes and it goes, but you have to be willing to go with the times in order to make sure that you and everyone else also prospers. So that's kind of what I do. I'm kind of the grease in the gears there. As contractors come in, I'm always there to tell them, hey, this is where it's at. This is where, this is what you're supposed to do. And I do that not because I want to see anything back, or not because he gives me this office space at a great deal, but because he's a genuinely good person. And when you have genuinely good people, those are the ones that you want to put in the places to see those people prosper, because those are the ones that are going to pull everybody else ahead with them. So that's why I urge the use ordinance to be passed.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Denise Couture. Like everybody that's been speaking before me, I rent a studio space at 48 West Huron. Wow, it's extraordinary to be able to be an artist, and the term struggling artist is real. And when you can find affordable space and start building community, it reaches out. When you start building a community of other artists and getting more connections to other people. And I'm a little tongue-tied right now. I was formerly the creative director of Clarkston Cultural Arts, and I can see what a lot of bureaucracy can wreck when people don't say yes to things that are good opportunities for people to grow. And I left that area to come here to start building something. As David elucidated, we're all part of the art walk that's coming up. We're looking at starting different types of art in the street to continue growing with murals and forms of art that might not be commonplace around here. And if we have a place to do that and can continue to afford to give us this really, really good rent, and I know it's a gift. Right now, I know it's a gift. And if there's a way to keep things level to help us without the gentrification that usually follows artists, that would be really lovely if you could give these people that use ordinance to help out this community. This is pretty cool. Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. Robert Mihalich, Jones Lang LaSalle. I was formerly at CBRE when I actually started. I'm a broker by my lifestyle. And I was working with 20 Lakes, who used to own the building. Had this building on the market for 4.5 years. Had over 50 showings in it. And we had to reduce the price by $1.5 million in order to sell it. So I've been in it so many times I could tell you every nook and cranny in the building. And Matt Gibb is right. It's a very, very unique building. We've had all kinds of folks through it, and a lot of folks at the end of the day said just tear it down, because that's what, the only way to fix it. It wasn't until Alan Bishop came along, and God bless him, came in and said, I'll challenge this, I'll take it on. And we worked together, and that's just what he did. He did everything he said he was going to do. He stood up and said, took the bull by the horns and got his plans, got his team together, and he's did an excellent job. So my hat's off to him for doing that. I mean, we've had trucking facilities through this thing, landscaping companies, pallet companies, people that wanted to convert it to a residential component. We were in the city for that. After they penciled their numbers, they found out it wouldn't pencil. It just, there was too much work to rehab the building and turn it into a residential facility. So since Alan's bought the building, we did a lease with a gentleman by the name of Joe Dwyer. He sold 9 tropical smoothies to start his new business, and we put it in Alan's building. He took 10,000 square feet for a liquid mining company, which is just awesome if you follow that and see what's going on with that whole industry. So it was a unique building that had a lot of power, so it worked for his use, which, it helped out. So it was a hand-in-glove fit for the both of them. I just urge you guys to do the right thing. They're going to do the right thing for the storage. They're going to do the right thing for the residential. They're doing the right thing for the community. Again, it's just nice to see it finally come off the market, and I'd like to see Alan complete his dream, build it out the way it should be built out, bring the tax base to the city, and get the thriving going on. You'll get a lot of residents. You'll get a lot of people that are there to fill up the spaces, park in the parking lot, and then future plans are to do the residential. And I've already met with the folks that he's talking about and working with. They've got some great plans. They're great people. In the future, he'll do what he said he's going to do. He's done it all his life. He's a man of his word. So I urge you to just work with him. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Chuck Johnson. I've been in the city for more than 50 years, and a lot of folk know me. I come to these different meetings occasionally and speak my mind and my heart. And I think Maddie and I have had the same thought and opinion over the years to try and make our city work for the betterment of everybody. And now I see, unlike the Silver Dome that slipped through our fingers, now we have a person right here available, Mr. Allen, and of course we have the prominent attorneys that, and a well-known realtor guy here that knows the ins and outs of this kind of operation. And we would be very remiss if we let this slip through our fingers this time. So please let's go forward with whatever is presented here and for the best interest of the people and the city. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else like to make public comment? I'll close public comment at 6:46 and open this up to.
And Chair, we do have the city legal counsel, if they could be introduced and an opportunity to speak.
Okay.
Yes, good evening. My name is Steve Jopik. Been brought in as special counsel to assist the city with the ZBA procedural matters that have been discussed a bit tonight. And also, in the course of doing so, have had the occasion to speak with Mr. Gibb regarding this particular property and some of the things that he presented this evening with respect to the various uses that are existing on the property, are proposed for the property, and I shouldn't say property, because as you all know, there are multiple properties here. There are multiple lots, outlots, and whatnot that are involved here. And some of the discussions that we've had have talked about, you know, getting some details together in terms of what those other ideas might be for the property, in discussing those. And as Mr. Gibb mentioned, we had a healthy discussion just last Friday, and part of it led to the request by the applicant for a postponement or adjournment or tabling, however you want to refer to it. And as discussed, if there is a period of time given, the idea would be to discuss some of those details and get some clarity to them, to bring back to the ZBA at a future meeting, so that you have those details right in front of you and are very clear, and you have an opportunity to review them before the meeting. That is the concept there. If those discussions lead to something, it would be brought back before you. If not, then the present, exactly what you have would be brought back before you. But the idea was to take some time to have those discussions. And if you have any questions from the legal side, I don't want to make this a big legal matter, but I didn't want to give a little understanding to the idea of the adjournment that's been requested in this matter, for you to consider.
Thank you.
Yes.
Would anybody like to ask any questions from a legal perspective? I guess I'd like to open it up for discussion here on the board. I think that it would be in our best interest to make sure that when this is presented to us, that we have all the details that we need, and that all the discussions between the applicant and the legal counsel and the city have been completed. So I'd like to see this come back in front of us at a later date, but if anybody else would like to comment on the board?
Well,
go ahead.
I think in order to work it out, because Mr. Brano brought up something about the parcels, I think, Matt, you covered that. You said you're going to keep everything inside.
Yeah, through the chair. Mr. Anderson, originally we had talked about using a portion of the existing historic building and then heavily screening some single-level garages. We came to believe that that's not in our best interest either. And so our proposal, so before we said, well, okay, we've got a use variance that says we can do this there, well, let's start planning it to do interior storage only in new buildings that would go on those two loading bay areas. So that really is our goal in this. I think that's what Attorney Jopich is referring. What we talked about was there's a lot of detail that goes into that. My question was the proper planning approach. So what's before you is just a use variance saying, okay, we trust Mr. Bishop. I hope you do. All you would say is, oh, you can complete that use on the property. Then the detail of how it goes on the property has to go through the Planning Commission or possibly council. I mean, there's a lot of extra work that goes into that. But our goal is, and we can't make the economics of the site work by doing storage just in the existing historic building. We have to use those other two larger parking areas, but we are now committed, because it's in our best interest too, to not screen them, but to build buildings and put it inside. So it would all be inside. Everything would be enclosed.
Okay, so how do you feel about postponing this or voting tonight on it, or?
Well, it's kind of like when you say, should they run the ball from the 1 yard line and win the game, or should they throw a pass? I would never presuppose anything from I know a lot of you, all of you really. I would never presuppose anything. We have a commitment. Alan has invested a significant amount into the property. You can see the type of people that we're trying to live up to our word that we want to do this community here in Pontiac. We can't make the economics work for them unless we can make the economics work as we've described so many times. And so we do need to move somewhat quickly. We did lose the $5 million pre-investment from one investor. If we wait too long, can I get them back? I don't know. So I'm giving you back the same type of punt. I apologize. If it is postponed, I would hope it would be a short term. But we want to work with the city, and that's our ultimate goal. If this board, if somebody feels on this board, no, we just want to vote tonight, then we'll take our lumps either way. All right? It's we love you all. We'll do whatever you want us to do.
I'm tired of hearing this. To tell the truth, And I'm gonna be frankly honest. We voted and we passed this before, and it came back now to us, and it's giving me a headache. And the city, because the city didn't, the last mayor didn't appoint anybody, and the council are fighting each other, and they didn't take care of business. And now we're stuck, and then we want to tell this guy here, it's your fault that you that the city didn't keep up with the people they had on the board. I mean, I'm from Mississippi in the South. I'm for right is right.
Yeah.
And my father said, a man is the only good as his word. Yeah. I asked this man for everything that was possible, that's why it passed, that he could do. He did everything that was possible that he's supposed to do, and he came back, and Reggie Hayes changed his vote, and he said, you done everything that we asked, and when we passed it. Now we come back to this. It's like you could buy a house, and you own it for 6 months, and they come back to you and say, look, you didn't, the guy didn't get his certificate in finance, so we're gonna have to refinance your home back, and you done put in the lawn and decks and everything. We're gonna have to refinance. You're gonna have to go through the whole process again. How would you feel? My mother said, do unto others as you would have them do unto you.
That's right.
So this thing too and stuff, and we were talking about training. We talking about training. I have been trained because Matt, the man that you stand before us, was the Oakland County executive, had a lot of training sessions out there, and we was out there with builders that build big buildings in Detroit and all kind of stuff, and people all over the state of Michigan were planning and zoning and all this kind of stuff. The reason I said to Delory was about these different things like the shoes and this and that. I was trying to give him some ideas, because one thing you learn in your training with Matt in the county is how to work things out for good for the city of Pontiac. That's why I sit here. I want to work things out, what's good for the city of Pontiac. And that's the way I learned how to do it from Matt and them when they taught us out there, and these guys, big guys from Detroit and all over. I mean, these guys wasn't a slouch, and I got 4 or 5 training sessions with that, all evening, about 3 or 4 times. So what I'm saying is this, whatever we want to do, until my working people down here, let's just do the right thing, all I can say.
Thank you, Mr. Anderson. Anyone else like to comment?
Well, hello. I agree. This was presented, it was looked at again because of the new zoning board. I'm with him. Right is right. Wrong is wrong. We're here today to vote for the use variance. I feel like let's give them a chance. Your word can only be, let us see what you're gonna do. Your word is your bond. You presented something here that looks good to me, and I'm hoping that it works. And you have all the people here that have been in the building that came to speak very highly of you. So all we can do now is just trust that you're gonna do what you're gonna do. I don't think that the vote should have came back, because when the vote was made, I'm sure that you invested more money, more time. So I feel like we should be fair,
Thank you for your comments. I would like to say that, talking about bonds and trust, I was just speaking with the mayor of Rochester at a mural in the municipal park that we just cut the ribbon on, and since I was on council at the time that went through, I wanted to go there and attend the ribbon cutting and discussing a couple of developments. And for perspective, we had one developer who's putting in an apartment complex, and they sold the fact that they're not going to ask for a brownfield, that they can do this without a brownfield. Don't worry, this is part of our pitch, and sure enough, they're asking for a brownfield right now. There was another developer on Main Street who was putting in brownstones, who was supposed to put in 8 to 10 of them, as was approved through planning, and he's built one, can't sell it, and he's stopped construction. So there's a lot sitting there empty, but his word was that he was going to build those. And there are bonds that go beyond words. You can have a written bond that is required in order for an approval to go through. It's just a warning. Not everybody's word is their bond when there's money involved and investment and things get down to the nitty-gritty. Things change.
Well, let me ask, so, because I'm new, I'm learning, looking forward to classes, so what are you suggesting we do?
As I said, we've got an applicant who's open to the concept of talking about this a little further with administration, making sure that everybody here is comfortable with how this moves forward. We also have an administration that is providing us with a recommendation that says they're willing to recommend storage within existing structure. To me, those are the two best options. But I understand that people don't want to hear this again and again, but I would say, let's try to do it right. Let's try to make sure that we've, taken this thing down the right path and looked at all the options. So again, I'd like to see a motion for tabling.
Okay.
And
But it's your board. You do what you want to do.
okay. And I guess I just have one question. We started off with the inside, just the Oakland Press building itself for storage, and then it expanded to outside storage, and now we're at, in my mind, again, being new, third iteration, and now we have storage in the Oakland Press building and adjacent, but enclosed. So
through the chair, the original proposal was in August of last year was from Devon Storage that wanted to do the entire inside of 48 West, all 75,000 square feet, and street level storage on every other piece of property. 4 votes yes, 3 no, so it failed because it needed 5 votes. When we brought that back, there was a lot of discussion on the record about what you're seeing tonight, and the motion that was made was that the use variance would be approved, but that the existing building would be limited to only 30,000, or 30% of the existing building would be used for storage. But that still included, then the use variance was for all of the properties, meaning we could still do the exterior storage, mini warehousing storage, anywhere else on the property. What we're proposing tonight, and to your point, Member May, we're fully willing to accept a condition of any motion that would approve this use variance that would say that any mini warehousing storage that you put on the property has to be inside a building. And yes, it is a new iteration, but it's not a new request for the land use. All of the lands have been asked to be used for this, but we're making a gesture to limit ourselves so that there wouldn't be any visible exterior garages at all on the property, and take that additional investment cost to do that. That's what's before you. And so we're more than willing, to your point, to move it forward, to say, we kind of get a sense that nobody wants to look at it, okay? That's fine. We'll build buildings around it, but all pursuant, it's not like we can build anything we want. We have to go through planning. We have to go to the planning commission. It has to be to code. It has to be to the ordinances of the city. It has to be to all of those things, but would give us the use. And so if there were a motion to say we would approve the use variance, but only if the storage is interior to any structure on the property, we're completely fine with that. That way there's no screening and there's no garage doors. We're completely fine. To the chair's point of firing trustee Word, well, how do you hold them to the fire? As Mr. Jopik will tell you, if a motion from a zoning board has a specific condition to it, and that condition fails, then the motion fails, which means we would lose our use variance because of our own ineptitude. You say, well, what if the project started? Difference with Mr. Allen is he's been here 40 years and has built the heck out of this city through his own businesses, and he owns his building free and clear. There isn't a tipping point here. He's into it. I mean, this is, if we can't do something, he loses all this money. So he has a vested interest in moving it forward. But having a condition that the storage would be specifically limited to interior of any structure on the property, again, we have to go through the entire process of the city to get approvals for any of those types of buildings. And maintaining what we've already committed to that's what we're offering tonight, is that we believe is the best compromise for the city, and would allow us to quickly go back to these people that have pulled away and say, please don't pull away, we need your money in downtown.
I have a question for the city planner then. Were you aware of this specific intent? And if so, why did you include existing structure only?
The specific intent as mentioned was not included in this review. So, a tabling and a representation of the new proposed plan would be appropriate.
And again, brings me back to let's table this and get it.
He does have a point there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And for us, the reason we didn't present it is because I respect the heck out of this attorney and this administration, and until he and I talked about what's the best platform for us to move forward in concept with all of this, I wasn't going to layer something brand new on anybody. And so we had that great talk on Friday, but this is the openness to it.
So is there a motion, or would anyone like to make
Just
more
comment-
comments?
Comments.
Comments, yeah.
As we talked before, as I mentioned before, the Open Press building is a unique building, and this is an obsolete building, and it really does need help. But the function of the board is, city council makes the rules, the laws of the zoning, and we're here to uphold the zoning unless there's some, new circumstances to grant variances. The last presentation, like was been mentioned, you were doing partial storage, but then you had, hundreds of sheds or garages, all over the site, not knowing what you're going to do with parking or anything else, just regular parking for the businesses and so forth. It didn't seem applicable use for the C2 zoning on this property. Also, on this particular case, you do have like 14 or 15 parcels involved, and, this is a good idea that you've presented today, but I'd still like to know where, if this is attaching to the Oakland Press building, how are you doing it? You don't need to discuss it tonight, but enclosing it is, would be something new to look at versus the dozens and whatever you had, quantities of those little storage sheds all over the place.
Through the chair, we're amenable to, and it goes back to Mr. Anderson's question of, just as your chair said, this is your board. And the direction that you all need to feel comfortable, whatever you're going to do in this matter, we're going to support. And we want to work with the city, and we want to do it right. It's always a juxtaposition of getting planning commission type things involved in a question, but in these types, it's inherent in it. And so if the will of this board would be to say, Matt, don't push so hard, you've got a really interesting concept to explore, I request just that it would be maybe just a 30-day tabling of this matter so that we had some pressure on it, so that we could at least tell the people we're working with, hey, listen, 30 more days, we're gonna be able to really figure out if this is a possibility or not.
Even the concept of where the buildings would be at, on the site with all these different parcels, how many parcels are involved? Because you might not need variance on all the parcels, type of thing. I'm not sure about that legally. This is under, I don't know if I've ran across a project that had so many different parcels under one address. So there'll be other legal things, I guess, to consider if you're talking every single parcel or just which parcels you need to put this on, and the building.
Those are all excellent questions, and I think we can, that's the type of thing that we talked about on Friday of boiling down. So I think we can do that. Steve, sorry.
Yes, and if I may, Mr. Chair? Sure. Yes, a zoning district, for example, does not have to necessarily follow an address line. A lot of times it will follow a property line, but not necessarily even always a property line. So it can move in. Similarly with a use variance, having parcel numbers is a good thing, and we have a whole bunch here. So just like you're talking about right now, which parcel numbers are we talking about for the indoor storage and the idea of an additional building? Which parcels would be involved with that would be something to bring back, something we need to discuss and would bring back to you. And if I may, Mr. Chair, just very quickly on, I know that this is, I wasn't here with you in March, of course, or those of you who were here in March, and I wasn't here in May. So it's my first time. So if I had it several times, I would certainly be of the mind of being exhausted hearing about it. However, I just want to make it known that it wasn't an easy decision. The question is, you find out that the members of the ZBA weren't validly sitting at the time a decision was made. What do you do? Do you sweep it under the rug, or do you try and do the right thing and make sure that a validly appointed, authorized set of individuals validly sitting up there are making the decision legally? It's both, and I know it's no consolation to the property owner, but it's to their benefit as well. It's to the community's benefit, and it's to the city's benefit to go through the exercise to, instead of sweeping it under the rug and just letting it ride and hopefully nobody notices. I hope you'd agree with me that that's not necessarily a good result either, and that was part of the thought process that went into bringing this back before you. Thank you.
sir.
Donna,
Mr. Chair, just one more last question. If you're looking for a postponement, are you looking for 30 days, 60 days,
30.
90 days, or?
30.
No, we know.
Okay, I
30?
can take it.
Oh, was it 30?
I think she required,
30.
I mean, your next regular meeting in July, I don't know, Mr. Smith, if there's anything scheduled for that meeting?
It would be July 18th. Timing-wise, August 15th may be the more appropriate date, but we could postpone it to the 18th if we can get all the information from the
What I recommend, I mean, what we would ask if the intent would be to postpone this, that you would just adjourn it to your next meeting. If there's substantive progress, we can certainly inform Mr. Smith ahead of time to say that this is an updated report to this board to move it forward. Having that date puts pressure to make sure that we're doing what we're supposed to do and we're actually moving it. A lot of times, my 30-plus years of government, you say it's the 15th and we don't meet till August 7th. And so I prefer, but it's your decision, I'm sure. Mr. Chop, you might have an opinion too.
I just want to make sure we can meet the public notice requirements if it's a 30-day adjournment. That's my only concern.
That would be the challenge with 30 days, is the public notice.
Yeah.
So the suggestion would be the August meeting to make the public notice and the communication time constraint.
We're clearly gonna meet whatever direction you give.
Okay, I would like to say something to the board. Once we reconvene with this, we should be really done with it. And we really shouldn't be going back. We shouldn't be having him come back in 30 days. We really shouldn't. Because the board that was here was competent, because I'm most definitely competent to be on this board. I'm a real estate agent. I've done tons of training, and I do training constantly concerning the ZBA within the school I attend. So for that to be questioned is, to me, it's like a slap in the face. I'm sorry. Mr. Bishop have done everything we asked of him, everything we didn't even ask of him, to keep coming back over and over and over again. And I understand it's a new board, so I respect all of you, but when we come back, we should be done with this. And Mr. Bishop and everybody in the audience that rent for Mr. Bishop should be able to continue, and we bring business and life back into Pontiac.
Right.
And that's what Mr. Bishop has done. So that's it.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I just have one comment as well. Just to follow the last comment, just really, the only thing I would just say is that when we do decide, you want to make sure that it is what is being proposed. That's all. Just what is it, and I know we've kind of gone through a couple of iterations of things, but whatever it is you want us to consider, that's what I want to be deciding on, not anything else. So as we move forward. And I agree. I don't like the around and around and around and around like a gerbil on a wheel. But I think we see a point where this can end pretty quickly. So, but again, my only comment is just make sure that we're deciding on what it is you're actually proposing to do.
And I guess when we do reconvene, if we can make sure we have detailed what the building, we're talking about storage inside a building, not any type of an outbuilding. So I don't know if there are legal requirements that come into play when we're talking about it being enclosed and part of the Oakland Press current building. So I don't know if that can be part of the conditions or if we can have that better explained.
And
Yep. Visual, yep. No.
And
No, just when we're talking about like the conditions, though, that was the, like I said, the third iteration was talking about inside enclosed in a building. So, you know, if you put brick around a storage building, an outbuilding, does that now make it an enclosed building with the garage front? So.
and through the
Apartments on top of the storage?
Yeah, they got them in roll over.
and through the chair, we do have in planning a predetermined set of conceptual or preconceptual requirements that are on the low end and do not require that great expense that we could ask the applicant to put together, and then we would include that in your next presentation.
Excellent. All right, appreciate it. Well, I guess I'd just like to say, I hope that the applicant and anybody else watching out there can see that we are open for business. We want to work with folks who are wanting to invest in this community. We want investment. We also want it to be done right, and we want to make sure we're dotting the I's and crossing the T's, and you know, that it's a win-win. And I think there's a way to do that, and sometimes it takes patience. And again, as you said, it's nice that it will be done with a valid legal board, and nobody can do anything about it once that final decision is made. So, with that, any motion?
I'll make a motion that we postpone this to our next meeting.
Yeah, we can post.
And if they're not,
We were thinking.
We can make the motion for the next meeting, and at the next meeting, if all the information isn't ready, we'll just postpone it for the following meeting. So that's fine.
it sounds like a good deal.
And they work everything out.
Mhm.
Okay, I second
I
it.
second it.
All right, motion by Mr. Buenos and second by Mr. Anderson. Roll, please.
Commissioner Anderson,
Yes.
Commissioner Bakawa,
Yes.
Commissioner Bueno,
Yes.
Commissioner Kirkendall,
Yes.
Commissioner McKellen,
Yes.
Commissioner May,
Yes.
Commissioner Burke.
Yes.
Motion passes.
All right.
Next.
Thank you very much. Next item is a dimensional variance request by applicant Carrie Johnson for 22 Myra Street.
Yes, and we'll just give everybody a moment.
Yeah. 22 Myra Street?
Yep.
What about it?
I'll be giving the presentation with that door to close.
Oh,
All right, so the next item, 22, ZBA 22-04. This is on behalf of the applicant Kerry Johnson for the address 22 Myra, parcel 64311810005 and 006. This was public noticed as two parcels. We did include, there are two documents in your packet that relate to the two parcels in question. This was a hearing we held at a previous meeting, and there were more questions, and the applicant is here today. One of the questions that did come up relates to those two parcels and the address. And these are just, for lack of better words, wonky parcels. And you can see in the document they both share the same address, which is not typical. They both are addressed as 22 Myra, but they do have two separate distinct parcel numbers. So they are distinct separate parcels. They have DBAs, for lack of better terms. You can associate one with 22.5 Myra and the other with 22 Myra, but for all intents and purposes, in our system, they are recorded as 22 Myra, 22 Myra. When you get to the county level, they are recorded as 22 Myra, 22 Myra, parcel 005 and 006. So when I refer to them, I will refer to them as parcel 005 and 006. And then that should kind of clarify which ones we're talking about. So as on your screen, just for context, this parcel does abut the Dawson Mill Pond. Is located on Myra, just south of Voorhees Drive. On your screen, you can see that parcel with the red star. There are, as mentioned, there are two parcels on your screen. Parcel A, which would be the parcel with the frontage, the larger frontage on Myra, which would be 006, and parcel B to the rear, which abuts Dawson Mill Pond, parcel 006. There are three-dimensional variances associated with this parcel, or this request. The parcel A, they are requesting to relocate this property line and bring it forward. So that parcel is going to request a variance to allow for a smaller total lot area. So parcel A is getting one variance request. Parcel B is requesting two. One for a larger parcel that is still less than the requirement, and the second for the setback to allow the addition. So if you do have any questions in regard to that, please do not hesitate to ask, but I'll kind of rehash it here on the next slide. So just to recap, the crux of this request is parcel B wants to add an addition on the front of their home. They require a setback variance in the front, and then because both of these parcels are below the minimum requirement, there's a further variance to allow the change of these parcels to take place. So the applicant did provide a site plan, which is in your packet. Again, you can see the existing two homes, 22 Myra 005 and 22 Myra 006, where they are requesting a proposed addition, and this little variance, or this distance here in the middle, is the front yard variance that they are requesting. Again, you can see on the completed survey that does have to be completed, they are relocating this red line to where the black line is. So essentially moving the property line to better locate the structure and then request a variance. For context, if the property line was not adjusted, that structure would not fit on that parcel. So you need the adjustment, and then you need the variance to make sense of the adjustment. The applicant did provide elevations of the proposed addition. So here you have your rear and your side. And then here, this upper right image indicates the east elevation, which is facing Myra. So this is if you were driving down the driveway, this is the addition that you would see. And then from the this would be the north elevation. This would be the Myra to the right of the screen, and this would be towards the pond to the left of the screen. So again, you can see this is that addition. We did provide some floor plans of the additions and the proposed changes. And then just to rehash the variance request, parcel 005 is requesting a 19-foot 6-inch front yard variance to allow the 6-foot 5-inch front yard setback. In addition to the front yard variance, there is a variance for a total minimum lot requirement variance or to allow less than the minimum. Because that parcel is being proposed to be larger. However, the larger parcel is still not in compliance. So the variance is to allow a larger parcel that is not in compliance. The second parcel, which would be the 22 Myra with the frontage on Myra, that parcel is a non-conforming parcel that is being requested to be made smaller. So a variance is required to allow for the smaller parcel as well. So again, I understand that the numbers can make it a little confusing. If you have any questions, I can kind of rehash those. So when we request or to permit a dimensional variance, there must be a determination of practical difficulty. We did provide all of those criteria, and this the site does meet the requirements or does outline the need of a practical difficulty, being that the lot has various characteristics that are unique. The problem is not self-created. It is a reasonable request, and then further it keeps up with the spirit of the ordinance and the further requirements of special exemption permits and site plans. So it does provide that practical difficulty. And then we did provide some staff findings. The setbacks from the rear would not change, so those would stay at 35 feet. The side yard setbacks would remain in effect, the required 5 feet on both sides. As did mentioned, both parcels A and B are legally non-conforming parcels, meaning they are allowed to remain. Just at the time when they were constructed or when those lots were created, they were permitted and they are essentially grandfathered to remain. Because those parcels are legally non-conforming, it does justify the requirement for further variances, as you cannot make changes to non-conforming parcels without the necessary variances. And then lastly, both parcels are owned by the same property owner or the applicant. And with that, that completes the ZBA item 22-04 for the 22 Myra parcels 641431 181 005 and 006. Thank you.
All right, is there an applicant here? Would you like to speak?
Good evening. Thank you for being here. My name is Kerry Johnson, and I own the property at 22 Myra, and I call it 22 and a half Myra. So what I'm proposing is, I lived on 47 Peggy Avenue, which is just 2 streets away, for 22 years. I built that house 22 years ago. And I sold it in October. I wanted to move into a smaller property, but that property is pretty small. It was just a small cottage. So what I was proposing is to move the property line from the back property up just a few feet so I could add a 2-car garage onto the front of the house. So I made the garage as small as I possibly could to be able to fit 2 cars in it. It's 22 by 22. So that, I tried to keep it as small as I could to be able to get the cars in, but I still need to move that property line up. What is it, about, not very far, 12 feet?
10 and 15 feet,
Yeah.
somewhere around there.
And I do own both properties. I bought them at the same time. I've had those properties for about 18 years.
Any questions for the applicant?
Is that the back, I wouldn't mind here, is that the back house that you're talking about?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, the front building, when I bought the property, it was condemned. And so, I went through the city and we completely brought it back. It literally was the worst house on the street. And so I completely gutted it down to the studs and redid everything. So, the other property I've owned for a long time, I just moved in. I would like to do the same thing to that house. So.
All right, I guess at this point I can open for public comment if there is anyone who'd like to make a comment.
Thank you. My name's Tom Holloman. I live around the corner at 55 Peggy Street. And I've known Kerry and the work that he's done on that house for the last 18 years, and he's done an incredible job. And I'd like to certainly recommend your support on adding an addition and also adding something that'll be of value to the neighborhood. And I know the neighbors agree with me on that. It'll be a great complement to that stretch of street. Thank you.
Thank you. I assume there's no more public comment, so we'll close public comment. And would anybody like to speak?
If nobody else has comment, I'd like to motion to approve.
And if I can make a comment to the motion, the information in your packet is correct in terms of the dimension. The dimension on your recommendation needs to be corrected. So it would be to permit a 6 foot 5 inch front yard setback. It just says 9.98. It should be 6.5. And 6.5 is what is reflected in your technical review, which was a correction from the previous meeting. It just didn't get corrected on this document.
So, are you okay with that adjustment to a vote,
Yes.
to the recommended motion?
Yeah.
And is there a second?
I second.
Commissioner May, was that
Go ahead.
was that the
You
second?
can read it.
I should read the motion?
Yeah,
Yep.
read
Oh,
it.
read
Yep.
it, the motion maker.
Okay.
Yep. I make a motion to approve a front yard setback dimensional variance petition for 22 Myra, pin 64-14-3181-005 and 006, to permit a 6 foot 5 inch front yard setback variance to construct a garage and a lot size square foot dimensional variance of 2,011 square feet from the required 7,200 square feet lot size for a total lot size of 5,188 square feet.
I second that motion.
So we've got a motion by Burke and a second by May.
All right. Are you ready for a roll call?
I guess anybody else want to make a comment on the motion? Just a comment on the motion. I agree with the motion. It does concern me a little bit when you're expanding nonconformities. I did kind of bring this up to the city planner earlier, and Mr. Smith said that it's been done in the neighborhood before. It's there's a precedent, and that it would be in the board's best interest to try to confine those sort of expanding nonconformities to the neighborhood if possible. So,
If I may,
yeah,
that is correct, but that is more related to the next item.
right, okay,
This is unique in terms of the request to make these kinds of changes for these smaller non-conforming lots. However, we do believe it is the opinion of the planning division that these unique situations are what the zoning board of appeals variances are for.
Yeah.
Whereas if this was a standard, your 40 by 100 deep lot, and somebody wants to make these kinds of changes, it would be out of the normal. So this would be one of those appropriate, because of the characteristics of that lot, these kinds of variances.
okay, thank you. So roll call?
Commissioner Anderson,
Yes.
Commissioner Beck, I'm sorry, I feel like I keep changing it. Just give it to me one more time.
Bevacqua,
Commissioner Bevacqua.
yes.
All right, Commissioner Bueno,
Yes.
Commissioner Kirkendall,
Yes.
Commissioner McCullen,
Yes.
Commissioner May,
Yes.
and Commissioner Burke. All right. Item passes. Motion approved.
All right, next item on the agenda.
Have a good
Thank you.
night.
They want to wear us out tonight, huh?
Yep.
I got to get my cigars, man.
All right. So there is one more item today, 680 Collier. I do not see the applicant here. We did make a few calls to them, and we were actually, let me apologize.
So what, should we table this or what?
Well, that's funny. The applicant just called me. We can proceed. I will go through the motions. It's a relatively simple request. If you feel comfortable with the change, then you can make the decision tonight. If you would feel more comfortable having that back and forth with the applicant, then we'll just do the item next month. So that's all.
I read through it, and it seems pretty straightforward to me, and I already made a comment on it
Yeah.
a little early. And so I'm okay with you presenting it, and if, the board's okay with approving it, we can move it through today.
Okay, and we'll proceed with the presentation. All right, so our next item here today is ZBA 22-05 for the applicant Mark Lady for the address 680 Collier Road, parcel 6414094260006. This is a dimensional variance to request an accessory structure greater than 900 square feet. So for context, the parcel is located at the northernmost edge of the city along Collier Road. And this parcel is zoned R1A, or the large one-family parcels that we have in our city. There are three essential residential or single-family residential zoning classifications: the R1, R1A, and R1B. R1 is your standard district that you'll see that covers roughly 70% of the city. The R1A and R1B districts are for larger single-family lots, and are no different from the R1s, just that they are larger. This parcel is on one of those larger R1A parcels. The requirements of these parcels for accessory structures: for R1 parcels, the maximum is 800 square feet. For R1A and B, it is 900 square feet. So the applicant is requesting a dimensional variance for an accessory structure at 960 square feet. So that does require a variance of 60 square feet to allow that 960 structure. As mentioned, this is not a uncommon request in the R1A and the R1B districts. Though, because those parcels are larger, they have more of a rural feel, and it is often that those residents request slightly larger pole barns or garages or structures like that. And historically, we have approved several. And if the applicant was here, he would stress that. I believe the address is 640 or 660 Collier, which is a few houses down. You can see, if you look at a map, they have another structure. We also, some of the commissioners made, we call the Brooks Project, Brooks Avenue, which is the next street just south. He also requested a slightly larger accessory structure, and that was the one that he wanted to store vehicles for, like concrete and kind of his side projects. So it just comes with the nature of those larger parcels. It may warrant a greater change to the ordinance that may allow slightly more flexibility to those parcels to reduce the amount of requests we get, and that's something staff can look at in the future. But until that change is made, the requirement or the maximum permitted square footage is 900, and anything past that warrants the request for a variance. So just quickly, again, they are requesting a 60-foot square foot variance to allow an accessory structure of 960 square feet in excess of the maximum 900 requirement. Again, there must be a determination of practical difficulty, which we made a determination that it does exist. Again, further strict compliance with the zoning ordinance, such as setbacks, size, lot coverage, height, strict compliance with those requirements does place a burden on that applicant when you do maintain property that is significantly larger and does carry a larger zoning classification. So in addition to the unique characteristics The problem is not self-created. It is consistent with other dimensional variances we've approved, and it does further comply with the spirit of the ordinance itself. It is determined that a practical difficulty does exist, and it is the recommendation of the Planning Division to approve the dimensional variance request of a variance of 60 square feet to allow the 960 square foot accessory structure. Thank you.
Thank you. Public comment, open and close, since there's nobody here. And any questions from the board?
I have questions. Mr. Smith, regarding accessory buildings, aren't they supposed to somewhat look like the house?
There is not a specific requirement that outlines the design of accessory structures. They don't have to mimic or reflect the house.
Okay. The only issue, I didn't have an issue with the 60 square feet, but this is a pole barn with commercial-sized doors, you know, they're 10 foot tall, and it's right up front. If I was reading the site plan, it looks like he's putting this right next to his house. A lot of these big garages or barns that on these larger lots, usually we're in the back or behind the house, that you really didn't see it from too much from the front. It wasn't part of the house, but if I read, it didn't print right because I couldn't tell on the plan, but it looks like he's right next to the house. Is that?
Yeah, it was proposed to be in line as if it were a traditional garage. It would just be detached, so it would be in line with the front of the home.
But it's vertical metal siding, like pole barn material. Okay, if we're, okay, that's all. Thank you.
And as kind of mentioned, our ordinance does not provide those kind of guidelines for sheds, garages. The ordinance, it only mentions the overall size, restriction of 800 or 900 square feet, its height in terms of 15 feet between the peak and the eaves, and there's one more that is escaping me. But as far as design standards for accessory structures, those are not
I thought
mentioned.
that was, just going by memory, I thought that was one of the considerations of those accessory building around the house. They kind of had to look, not exactly, but, you know, same color, same architectural look.
And it came to me, it's the location of the structure cannot be in the front yard. It has to be in the rear or side.
Okay.
Any other questions?
No.
Would anyone like to make a motion?
I make a motion to approve the dimensional variance petition for 680 Collier, PN 641409-426-006. Accessory structure dimensional variance of 60 square feet, granting an accessory structure up to 960 square feet.
Support.
Second by, I'm sorry, was it?
Alstine.
you?
Yeah.
So we've got motion by May and support by Kirkendorf.
All right. Commissioner Anderson?
Yeah.
Commissioner Bevacqua?
Yes.
I got it now.
Yeah, BB.
Yeah.
Commissioner Bueno?
Yes, if you're saying that it doesn't have to look like the house.
Commissioner Kirkendall?
Yes.
Commissioner McKellen?
Yes.
Commissioner May?
Yes.
Commissioner Burke?
Yes.
Motion passes. And Commissioner Bueno, we will double check and just further review and make sure that if there are any design standards related to the appearance of the structure and the height of the doors, we'll just do another peruse through
Okay.
and make sure if there are any criteria, then we can just uphold them.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
All right, next item is public comment. There's no one here, so we'll move on.
Chair, you just have to open and close the
Oh,
general
okay,
public comment.
I will open and close the public comment hearing.
Yep.
And move on to miscellaneous. Does anyone have any miscellaneous items?
staff does not have any miscellaneous comments for you.
All right.
Oh, Donovan, I have a question.
Yes.
Since everybody seems to think that this board is incompetent, Jesus Christ, you got some training set up or some stuff coming up for us? Because this blows my mind. Plus,
We
all
are
those- that's-
looking to identify upcoming trainings. There are some starting to roll out. There was a period, called 2020, 2021, in-person trainings were not happening. A lot of the other trainings were kind of canceled. They're starting to come back this year.
Okay.
So we will be notifying you of any upcoming training.
Okay.
And I'd like to clarify my comments that I heard that it wasn't financially supported in the previous administration in terms of getting people to MML conferences and.
That was the county.
So I just, my point was that from what I've heard from this current administration is that they're very open to funding training
Right.
for all board members.
And for the record,
Which was not in any way to disparage the
previous board.
quality of the previous board members.
And we can just say for the record, we have annually, as long as I've been here, and I believe some of the other commissioners can speak to prior, we were very well and kept up with trainings across the entire boards,
Yeah, we
zoning
were.
board, historic, and planning commission. What was not new, or what was new, but what we are aware of, is the presence of COVID during the end of 2019, 2020, and majority of 2021, where the zoning board went from meeting 11 to 12 times a year to 3 to 4 for 2 years. So we experienced a significantly less meeting schedule, in addition to the absence of the presence of meetings in a whole. So again, that is changing. We're starting to bring those trainings back, and we're starting to resume our typical monthly schedule. So we are looking to most likely have a meeting next month and the following month, and we will continue to have those meetings as we get back into the I would say, the schedule in the before times, before 2019.
Can someone provide to the board members from administration a schedule of the events that the Michigan Association of Planners are putting on in ML so that everybody sees it on an ongoing basis? Gets
Yes.
invited to any of those opportunities. Sometimes you're required to drive across the state if you want to go to it, or.
Yeah, you will start to get the notifications for those. I can also start to bring them to the meeting. At least try to include the next month or two in the meeting packets. And then there is also, we'll get the registrations back out to all the commissioners. You'll also become members of the Michigan APA, and you get the monthly Scholastic booklet, which again gives you that schedule of events for the remainder of the year. And I believe it's a bi-monthly issue. I think 6 come out a year. You get it during that second month. And then again, it just kind of recaps prior to and what's coming up. And those come here, and then we bring them to your meeting.
Anyone else?
Okay.
All right, with that, we'll adjourn.
All right. Thank you.
All right.